On March 14th, 2023, at my granddaughter Kennedy's 9th birthday dinner, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Grandma, my mama says you're just a charity case. She says we're doing you a favor letting you come here." I'm Pearl Jean Williams. I'm 68 years old. I've been a widow for 15 years, and I raised my son Terrell alone after my husband Samuel died of a heart attack at 47. I didn't cry, I didn't yell, I didn't cause a scene. I just said, "Thank you for letting me know where I stand," stood up from that $200 per person table, and walked out of Elway's Steakhouse with my head held high. What happened next? Well, let me tell you about the most expensive birthday party that family never forgot. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please, stay with me until the end. Because this story isn't just about revenge, it's about something much more important. Knowing your worth. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the text came through. I was in my living room on Welton Street in 5 Points, the historic heart of Black Denver, ironing my navy blue suit. The one I'd bought 5 years ago at Macy's for my retirement party from the law firm where I'd worked as a paralegal for 40 years. My phone buzzed on the ironing board. Terrell, "Mom, Kennedy's birthday dinner tonight at Elway's. 7 p.m. Don't be late. Not would you like to come? Not we'd love to have you. Just a command. An order from my 42-year-old son who I'd raised alone, put through the University of Denver, and supported through every mistake he'd ever made." I looked at the photograph on my mantel. Samuel Williams stared back at me, handsome in his Sunday suit, that gentle smile that had gotten me through 25 years of marriage. He'd been gone 15 years now, but I still talked to him sometimes. "Samuel," I whispered, smoothing the wrinkles from my jacket, "your boy is testing me today. But you always said, 'Stand tall, Pearl, even when they want you to kneel.' So that's what I'm going to do." I went to my bedroom and pulled out the birthday gift I'd been preparing for 3 months. A $5,000 savings bond in Kennedy's name, money I'd saved from my Social Security checks, putting aside $200 a month. And beside it, a handcrafted leather journal from the Tattered Cover bookstore, embossed with Kennedy's initials, K.T.W. Kennedy, Teresa Williams. My grandbaby, 9 years old today. I wrapped them carefully in silver paper, tied it with a purple ribbon, Kennedy's favorite color, and placed it in a gift bag. Then I put on my good pearl earrings, the ones Samuel had given me for our 20th anniversary, and checked myself in the mirror. A 68-year-old black woman in a 5-year-old suit looked back at me. Respectable, dignified, invisible to most people. But Samuel used to say I had a backbone made of steel wrapped in velvet. People always mistook the velvet for weakness. They were about to learn different. Elway's Steakhouse sits in the Cherry Creek neighborhood, the kind of place where white Colorado money goes to see and be seen. The valet parking alone costs $15. A single ribeye steak runs $85. The wine list has bottles that cost more than my monthly electric bill. I arrived at exactly 6:55 p.m., 5 minutes early, just like my mama taught me. Through the tall glass windows, I could see my family already seated at a large round table in the center of the dining room. The best table in the house. The one that says, "Look at us. We matter." My son Terrell sat at the head, wearing a charcoal gray suit that looked expensive. His tie was burgundy silk. His watch, a Tag Heuer I didn't remember him owning, caught the light when he reached for his wine glass. Ashley, my daughter-in-law, sat to his right. She was wearing a champagne-colored dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, and her hair was styled in loose waves that screamed professional blowout. Her wrist dripped with the gold bracelet I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. $4,200 I'd taken from my savings because Terrell said she'd been so good to him. And there was Kennedy, my granddaughter, sitting across from her mother with an iPad propped in front of her plate. She was wearing a designer dress. I recognized it from the Ralph Lauren window downtown, price tag $350, and her hair was pulled back in an elaborate braid style with beads that clicked when she moved her head. Nobody looked at the door. Nobody watched for me. I walked in, and the hostess, a young white woman with perfect teeth and that Colorado ski tan glow, looked me up and down in a way I'd felt my whole life. That quick scan that asks, "Are you sure you belong here?" "Good evening," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm meeting the Williams party." She blinked. "Oh, of course. Right this way." As I followed her through the restaurant, I noticed things. The way other diners, mostly white, mostly wealthy, tracked me with their eyes. The way the black busboy gave me a small nod of recognition, one of those subtle gestures that says, "I see you, sister." And I noticed something else. Ashley was on her phone, holding it up for a FaceTime call. I could hear her voice even from 10 feet away. "Girl, yes. The Escalade comes tomorrow. Pearl white, leather everything, panoramic sunroof. We're picking it up at 9 a.m. Premium Auto Denver, the luxury lot. $85,000, but you know Terrell handles his business." $85,000. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. I reached the table. "Hello, everyone. Happy birthday, Kennedy, baby." Kennedy didn't look up from her iPad. She was watching some YouTube video with the sound off, her thumbs moving across the screen. Ashley glanced at me, and her eyes did that same scan the hostess had done. Taking in my 5-year-old suit, my sensible low-heeled shoes, my modest pearl earrings. I watched her lips press together in something that wasn't quite a smile. "Oh, Pearl Jean," she said. "Not Mom, not Grandma Pearl, just my government name like I was the help." "You made it. We almost started without you. Just grab that seat on the end there." She pointed to the chair at the far end of the table, the spot where the waiter stands to take orders. The spot that says, "You're here, but you're not really part of this." I set my purse down and placed the silver-wrapped gift in front of Kennedy's plate. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," I said softly. "Grandma got you something special." Kennedy pushed the iPad aside just long enough to glance at the gift. She didn't pick it up, didn't open it, just pushed it to the side like it was a used napkin. "Thanks," she mumbled, eyes already back on her screen. "Kennedy," Terrell Sassy said, but there was no weight in his voice, no correction, just a word floating in the air, meaningless. He was too busy studying the wine list, his finger running down the page of reds that started at $120 a bottle. I sat down in the chair on the end, picked up my water glass, took a sip, and I waited. The appetizers came. Crab cakes for Ashley, $28. Oysters for Terrell, $32. French onion soup for me, $16, the cheapest thing on the menu. The conversation flowed around me like I was a rock in a stream. Ashley talked about her Pilates instructor and the new facial treatment she was getting at some spa in Boulder. Terrell talked about a sales conference in Scottsdale. Kennedy played on her iPad and occasionally whined about the restaurant's Wi-Fi being slow. Nobody asked me how I was doing. Nobody asked about my week. Nobody asked anything. I was 75 feet from my own family, and I might as well have been invisible. Then the main courses arrived. Terrell had ordered the bone-in ribeye, 45 ounces of premium beef for $85. Ashley had the Chilean sea bass, $62. Kennedy had spaghetti carbonara, $38 for a child's portion, and she was eating it with her mouth open, sauce smeared across her chin, her elbows planted firmly on the white tablecloth. I watched for a moment, that old instinct rising up. I'd raised 3 generations of good manners in my family. My mama had taught me, I'd taught Terrell, and I'd assumed Terrell would teach Kennedy. But clearly, something had gone wrong. "Kennedy, baby," I said gently, leaning forward. "Elbows off the table, sweetheart, and try to chew with your mouth closed. A young lady should have good manners." The words were barely out of my mouth when the table went silent. The kind of silence that makes nearby conversations stop. The kind that pulls attention, like gravity. Kennedy stopped chewing. Slowly, she lowered her fork. She looked at her mother first, some unspoken communication passing between them. And then she turned to me. And what I saw in my granddaughter's eyes was not the innocence of a 9-year-old child. It was calculation. Coldness. Ashley's eyes looking out of Kennedy's face. "My mama says I don't have to listen to you," Kennedy said. Her voice was loud enough to carry to the next table, clear, deliberate, rehearsed. I felt my face grow hot. "Excuse me?" Kennedy wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, deliberately now, making sure I saw. "Mama says you're old-fashioned and out of touch. She says you're just a charity case. She says we're doing you a favor letting you come to nice places like this because you never worked a day in your life and you don't have any money of your own." The words hit me like physical blows. Charity case. Never worked. Don't have any money. Around us, I could feel people staring. A white couple at the next table had stopped eating entirely, watching our family drama unfold like it was dinner theater. I looked at Ashley, waiting for her to correct her daughter, waiting for her to say, "Kennedy, that's not true. Apologize to your grandmother right now." But Ashley didn't say that. Ashley took a slow sip of her wine, a 2015 Camus Cabernet, $140 a bottle, I'd seen it on the menu, and shrugged. "Kids repeat what they hear, Pearl Jean," she said, examining her manicured nails. "Kennedy's just being honest, and honestly, those manners you're trying to teach went out of style in the 1960s. This isn't your mama's dinner table." I turned to my son, my baby boy, the child I'd carried for 9 months, the toddler whose fevers I'd nursed through the night, the teenager whose college applications I'd proofread, the young man whose tuition I'd paid by working double shifts after Samuel died. "Terrell," I said, and I heard my voice shake. "Did you hear what your daughter just said to me?" Terrell loosened his tie. He looked uncomfortable, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. He glanced at Ashley, then at Kennedy, and finally, briefly, at me. Then he laughed, a nervous, wheezing laugh that said he'd chosen his side. "She's just a kid, Mom," he said, waving his hand dismissively. "Don't be so sensitive. Besides," he leaned back in his chair, that expensive watch catching the light again. "Ashley's not entirely wrong. I mean, we are paying for your meal tonight, aren't we? Just let it go. Don't make this into a thing." "We are paying for your meal." The room tilted. Everything crystallized in that moment with perfect, terrible clarity. I looked at the $85 steak on Terrell's plate, at the $140 wine bottle, now half empty, at Ashley's $4,200 bracelet, at Kennedy's $350 dress, and I understood. Terrell hadn't just been taking money from me. He'd been lying to them. He'd been telling Ashley that he was the successful provider, the man who could afford this lifestyle. He'd painted me as the poor, destitute mother he dragged along out of pity. They didn't know. Ashley didn't know that I'd paid the down payment on the 4,800 square foot house they lived in on Maple Street. $150,000 from my retirement savings. Kennedy didn't know that her $24,000 per year private school tuition came from my checking account, not her father's. They didn't know that the bonus Terrell told them he was using for the down payment on that $85,000 Escalade was actually a $30,000 transfer from my account that he'd begged me for just yesterday. To them, I was a burden, a charity case, a nobody who got a free bowl of soup out of their generosity. I looked at my son one more time. He was smiling now, relieved that I hadn't made a scene, relieved that he'd put me in my place. He thought he'd won, but something inside me snapped. Not loudly, quietly, like a door closing and locking for the final time. I didn't flip the table. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't do any of the things they probably expected from a hurt, embarrassed old woman. A lady doesn't make scenes. Instead, I reached into my purse, the Coach bag Terrell had given me 2 Christmases ago, bought with money I'd loaned him that November, and pulled out my wallet. My hands were steady. I counted out 3 $20 bills, $60. Enough to cover my $16 soup, my $4 iced tea, and a generous tip for the waiter who'd witnessed this humiliation. I placed the cash on the table, right next to the bread basket. "What are you doing?" Terrell asked. His fork paused halfway to his mouth. "I'm paying for my dinner," I said. My voice didn't shake anymore. It was calm, clear, cold. "I wouldn't want to be a burden on your finances, son. After all, you have a big day tomorrow. That $85,000 car isn't going to buy itself." I stood up. My knees felt strong. My back was straight. "Mom, sit down," Terrell hissed, glancing around to see if anyone was watching. Everyone was watching. "You're embarrassing us." "No, Terrell," I said, picking up my purse. "You've embarrassed yourself enough for one evening." I looked at Kennedy. She was staring at me now, iPad forgotten, with something like uncertainty in her eyes. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," I said gently. "I hope you enjoy that journal. Maybe you can write down today as the day you learned that words have consequences." Then I turned my back on them. I walked past the dessert cart with its $60 soufflés, past the mahogany bar with its $200 glasses of scotch, past the hostess stand where that same young woman avoided my eyes. I pushed open the heavy glass doors and stepped out into the cool Denver night. Just before the door closed behind me, I heard Ashley's voice, loud and carrying over the restaurant noise. "God, so dramatic." Don't worry about her, babe. Just make sure that transfer clears by 9 a.m. for the dealership. We cannot lose that car. I stopped on the sidewalk. The streetlights of Cherry Creek blurred for a moment as tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them away. Make sure that transfer clears by 9 a.m. I looked at my watch. It was 8:17 p.m. The bank opened at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. I had 14 hours and 13 minutes. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in years, maybe decades, I didn't feel that crushing weight on my chest. That constant anxiety about whether my son needed something, whether I'd given enough, whether I'd done enough. I felt powerful. They thought I was a charity case. They thought I was a helpless old woman who needed their scraps of affection like I needed their scraps of food. They were about to find out that this charity case held the keys to their entire kingdom. I walked to my 2013 Honda Accord, parked in the general lot 3 blocks away because I wasn't about to pay $15 for valet. I got in, locked the doors, and sat in the silence for a long moment. "Samuel," I whispered to the empty car, "your boy is about to learn what it means to stand on his own 2 feet. I started the engine. I wasn't going home to cry. I was going home to prepare. By 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, my son was going to discover exactly how small he really was without his mother's wallet propping him up. The charity case was officially closed. I slept better that night than I had in 20 years. Usually, I woke up at 3 a.m. with my mind racing. Did I remember to pay Terrell's electricity bill? Did the check for Kennedy's piano lessons clear? Did Ashley like that scarf I bought her for her birthday? Or was it sitting in a donation pile somewhere? Worry had been my constant companion since Samuel died. It slept in the empty space beside me, cold and relentless, but not tonight. When I opened my eyes, sunlight was streaming through my bedroom curtains, painting golden stripes across my grandmother's quilt. The house was quiet except for the ticking of the clock in the hallway, Samuel's grandfather's clock, the one that had survived 3 generations. I looked at the clock, 7:15 a.m. I'd slept straight through, no nightmares, no anxiety, no waking up in a panic about bills I hadn't paid or needs I hadn't met. I felt light, unburdened, like I'd been carrying a 100-pound backpack for miles and had finally set it down. I got out of bed and went to my kitchen, made my coffee the way Samuel taught me. 2 scoops of community coffee, dark roast, the kind we'd gotten every time we visited his family in Louisiana. While it brewed, I sat in my sunroom and watched a cardinal land on the bird feeder. He was a bright red male, proud and strong. He cracked a sunflower seed, ate the heart, and flew away. "Eat what you need, leave the rest," I said to myself. I'd been letting my family eat everything. The seeds, the heart, the shell, the feeder itself. They'd been picking me clean, and I'd been thanking them for it. Not anymore. At 7:45 a.m., I went to my home office. It's a small room off the hallway, cluttered with filing cabinets and boxes of old legal briefs from my paralegal days. People don't realize how much legal knowledge you pick up after 40 years of working in law firms. I opened the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet and pulled out a thick red accordion folder labeled Terrell Financial. I'd kept records. Every single transaction, every check, every transfer, every loan that was never paid back, every emergency that required my retirement savings. I opened the folder and spread the contents across my desk. Bank statements going back 10 years. Highlighted in yellow were the transfers to Terrell's account. September 2013, $150,000. Down payment on house at 1247 Maple Street. December 2015, $40,000. Investment in Ashley's boutique business. March 2017, $65,000. Kitchen remodel. Contractor, Denver Home Designs. August 2018, $24,000. Kennedy's first year at Summit Academy Private School. November 2019, $32,000. Ashley's Mercedes lease plus insurance for 2 years. February 2021, $18,000. Family vacation to Turks and Caicos, Beaches Resort. June 2022, $43,000. Credit card debt consolidation. January 2023, $28,000. Property tax on Maple Street house plus Kennedy's school tuition. March 2023, $30,000. Down payment on Cadillac Escalade. and those were just the big ones. There were dozens of smaller transfers. $500 here for a car repair, $2,000 there for a medical bill, $800 for Christmas presents, $1,500 for Kennedy's birthday party. I pulled out my calculator, an old Texas Instruments that Samuel had used for his construction business, and started adding. The total came to $623,287. $623,287. Over 10 years, I had given my son more than $500,000 of my retirement savings. Money I'd earned working double shifts after Samuel died. Money I'd saved by clipping coupons and wearing the same suits for 5 years. Money I'd invested carefully in index funds and CDs. Gone. And what had I gotten in return? A spot at the end of the table. A granddaughter who called me a charity case. A son who laughed when his wife insulted me. I looked at the most recent bank statement. The $30,000 transfer scheduled to post today at 9 a.m. I picked up my phone and looked at the time. 8:05 a.m. 55 minutes until that money disappeared into Terrell's account. 55 minutes until he walked into Premium Auto Denver and drove away in an $85,000 car that my retirement savings bought. I stood up, went to my bedroom, and got dressed. Not the old Navy suit this time. I put on my best blazer, charcoal gray, tailored, the one I'd worn when I gave depositions in million-dollar cases. I put on my pearl necklace, the real one Samuel had saved for 2 years to buy me. I put on my lipstick, my good shoes. I looked in the mirror and saw the woman I used to be, the paralegal who'd gone toe-to-toe with attorneys 3 times her age, the woman who'd raised a son alone and built a life from nothing. That woman had gotten lost somewhere along the way, buried under years of yes and of course and whatever you need. But she was back now. I grabbed my purse, my red folder, and my car keys. I had a 8:30 a.m. appointment at First National Bank of Denver, and my son was about to learn that the ATM he'd been using for 42 years was permanently out of order. First National Bank of Denver sits on the corner of 17th and Curtis Street, a granite building that stood there since 1947. I've been banking there for 33 years since Samuel and I opened our first joint account in 1990. I pulled into the parking lot at exactly 8:25 a.m. Through the glass doors, I could see the tellers unlocking their drawers, turning on their computers, counting their starting cash. The familiar ritual of a bank opening. At 8:30 a.m. sharp, the security guard, Frank Morrison, a retired Denver police officer who'd worked there for 12 years, unlocked the front door. "Morning, Mrs. Williams," he said, holding the door open. His smile was genuine. "You're here bright and early today." "Big day, Frank," I said, walking past him. "Very big day." I went straight to the back office. Through the glass walls, I could see Robert Patterson, the branch manager, settling into his chair with his morning coffee. Robert was 58, silver-haired, and had been handling my account since Samuel died. He looked up, surprised, when I knocked on his door. "Pearl Jean," he said, standing. "I wasn't expecting you. Is everything all right? The transfer? Did it go through okay?" He knew about the $30,000. I'd been in here yesterday at 4 p.m., fretting over it, making absolutely sure it would post to Terrell's account by 9 a.m. this morning. "The transfer is exactly what I'm here about, Robert," I said, sitting down in the leather chair across from his desk. I placed my red folder on his desk. "It hasn't posted yet, has it?" He typed something on his keyboard, squinted at his screen. "It's scheduled to post in," he glanced at his watch, 23 minutes, 9 a.m. sharp, just like you requested. "It's sitting in pending status on account number 4598, the joint account." "Cancel it," I said. The hum of the air conditioning seemed to get louder in the silence that followed. "I'm sorry," Robert said. "Cancel the transfer," I repeated, my voice steady. "Reverse it. Put the $30,000 back into my personal savings account, account number 7742, the one that only has my name on it." Robert took off his reading glasses and looked at me. Really looked at me. He'd seen me in this office dozens of times over the years, always worried, always asking if I was doing the right thing, always second-guessing myself when it came to helping Terrell. But something in my face must have been different today because he didn't ask why. He didn't suggest I think about it. He just started typing. "Done," he said after a moment. "The transfer has been canceled. The funds are back in your primary savings account, $30,000. "Thank you," I said. "Now I need to make some other changes." I pulled out a sheet of paper from my red folder. I'd written everything down last night, sitting at my kitchen table while the rest of Denver slept. A list of every financial connection I had to my son. The joint checking account number 4598, I said. The one Terrell uses for his mortgage payments and household bills. I want my name removed from it. Today. Right now. Robert leaned back in his chair. Pearl Jean, if you remove your name, you won't have access to monitor transactions anymore. And if that account goes into overdraft, the bank won't be able to pull from your savings to cover it. You've had the overdraft protection linked for 5 years. I know, I said. That's the point. I want the overdraft protection removed. I want the automatic transfers for the mortgage canceled. I want the automatic payments for Kennedy's school tuition canceled. I want the automatic payment for Terrell's car insurance canceled. I want my name off everything. Robert set down his coffee cup. Pearl Jean, this is drastic. Did something happen? Terrell usually relies on that safety net. Terrell is 42 years old, Robert, I said, smoothing my skirt. It's time he learned to walk without a net. For the next 27 minutes, the only sounds in that office were the clicking of keyboard keys and the whir of the printer. I signed document after document. Revocation of joint account access. Signed, Pearl Jean Williams. Removal of authorized user, Ashley Williams. Signed, Pearl Jean Williams. Cancellation of recurring transfer, mortgage. Signed, Pearl Jean Williams. Cancellation of recurring transfer, tuition. Signed, Pearl Jean Williams. Cancellation of overdraft protection. Signed, Pearl Jean Williams. Revocation of power of attorney. Signed, Pearl Jean Williams. With every signature, I felt lighter, like I was signing my own Emancipation Proclamation, taking back my life $1 at a time. All right, Robert said finally, handing me a receipt. It's done. You have complete control of your assets now. The joint account is solely in Terrell's name. You have no liability, no access, no connection. He squinted at his screen. The current balance in that account is $416.32. $416. That was what my son had to his name without me, and he was on his way to buy an $85,000 car. Thank you, Robert, I said, standing and shaking his hand. You take care, Pearl Jean, he said, and there was something in his voice, a new respect maybe, or recognition. You look well today. I feel well, I said. For the first time in a long time, I feel well. I walked out of that bank at 9:03 a.m. with my head high and my shoulders straight. I sat in my Honda in the parking lot and watched the world go by. Business people rushing to their offices, construction workers heading to job sites, the city of Denver waking up to another Thursday morning. My phone was sitting in the cup holder. At 9:08 a.m. it buzzed, then it buzzed again, then a long vibration, a phone call. I picked it up and put on my reading glasses. I let it ring, once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. I wasn't ready to hear his voice yet. I wanted to savor this moment a little longer. The ringing stopped, then a text message appeared. Terrell. Mom, I'm at the dealership. Finance guy asking for confirmation number. Transfer hasn't shown up yet. Send it now. We're in a hurry. No good morning, no how are you, no thank you, just demands, just orders to his personal ATM machine. 10 seconds later, another message. Terrell. And seriously, don't be petty about last night. Ashley is stressed. Just get it done. Don't be petty. Standing up for myself was petty. Refusing to be humiliated was petty. I felt that cold smile touch my lips again. The smile of a woman holding all the cards. I tapped the reply box. My fingers moved slowly, deliberately. I wanted every word to be perfect. A charity case doesn't have $30,000 to give. I'm sure a successful man like you can handle his own bills. Ask your wife to pay for it. I read it over once, twice, then I pressed send. The little message swooshed away into the digital universe. Delivered. My phone immediately started ringing again. Terrell calling. I looked at his name on my screen. For years, that name had made me jump. It had made me reach for my checkbook. It had made me apologize for things I hadn't done. Not anymore. I reached out and slid the silent switch on the side of my phone. Silence. Then I went into settings and turned on Do Not Disturb. I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat, started my engine, and pulled out of the parking lot. I had errands to run. I needed to stop by Home Depot for new locks. I needed to visit the office supply store for some documents. And I needed to buy bird seed because that cardinal would be back tomorrow morning, hungry and expecting breakfast. Unlike my son, the cardinal was grateful for what he received. As I drove down Colfax Avenue, I imagined the scene at Premium Auto Denver. I could picture it perfectly. Terrell sitting at that salesman's desk, watching his phone, waiting for the confirmation that was never coming. Ashley already sitting in the driver's seat of that pearl white Escalade, taking selfies, planning her Instagram post. And the salesman, I knew him actually, a man named James Chen, who'd sold me 3 reliable cars over the years, watching his commission disappear as the credit card machine flashed declined in angry red letters. I turned on the radio. Aretha Franklin was singing Respect. How appropriate. I wasn't there when it happened, but I pieced it together later from various sources. James Chen, who I ran into at King Soopers 2 weeks later, gave me most of the details. He did it quietly, with a kind of professional discretion, but I could tell he'd found the whole thing fascinating. According to James, Terrell and Ashley arrived at Premium Auto Denver at 8:47 a.m. Ashley was wearing designer sunglasses even though it was overcast, carrying a Starbucks latte, and acting like she owned the place. She went straight to the pearl white Escalade on the showroom floor, the one with the red sold tag on the windshield, and climbed into the driver's seat. James said she was in there for 20 minutes, adjusting the mirrors, taking photos, posting Instagram stories with captions like "New Wheels Loading" and "Blessed Season." Meanwhile, Terrell was at James's desk, leg bouncing nervously, checking his phone every 30 seconds. "So, Mr. Williams," James said, pulling up the paperwork on his computer, "we have everything ready to go. We just need to finalize that down payment, the $30,000 we discussed. Did the transfer clear?" "Oh, absolutely," Terrell said, flashing that charm smile he uses when he's lying. "My mom, Pearl Jean Williams, you might know her. She was sending it over this morning. Should be there any second. You know how banks are. Slow." James nodded and checked his system, refreshed the screen, frowned. "I'm not seeing it, Mr. Williams," James said. "The account balance is showing $416.32. James told me that Terrell's face went white. Actually white, like all the blood had drained to his feet. "That's impossible," Terrell said. "Try the card. Just run the debit card. The overdraft protection is linked to her savings account. It'll go through." James swiped the card. Processing. Declined. Insufficient funds. "Must be a chip error," Terrell said, his laugh too high, too nervous. "Wipe it off. Try again." James tried again. "James. Declined. Insufficient funds." "Mr. Williams," James said gently, sliding the card back across the desk. "The link to the secondary funding source has been severed. There's no money available." That's when Ashley noticed something was wrong. She climbed out of the Escalade. James said she actually slammed the door so hard the entire showroom echoed, and marched over in her heels. "What is taking so long?" she demanded. "I want to get this detailed before lunch. Why aren't we signing papers?" "There's a hiccup with the funds," Terrell mumbled. "What hiccup?" Ashley's voice was rising now. She turned to James. "Just run it again. His mother probably messed up the routing number. She's getting senile, I swear." James said he tried to explain, but Ashley wasn't listening. She grabbed Terrell's phone and started reading his messages. Her face when she read my text, James said it was something to see. "Is she joking?" Ashley's voice carried across the entire showroom now. Other customers were staring. "She thinks she can teach us a lesson? Today? Call her. Call her right now." "She's not answering," Terrell said. "She sent this text and then nothing." "Well, fix it," Ashley screamed. "Pay for it from your investment account. Your bonus, your salary. You're the VP of sales. You make 6 figures. Just write a check." And this, James said this was the moment everything fell apart. Terrell froze. He looked at his wife. He looked at the salesman. He looked at the floor. I can't," he whispered. "What do you mean you can't?" Ashley demanded. That's when James decided to put them out of their misery. "Ma'am," James said quietly, turning his computer screen so they could see, "the financing for this vehicle wasn't approved based on Mr. Williams's income alone. His debt-to-income ratio was too high. The loan was approved based on the co-signer's assets and credit score." He pointed to the screen. "Pearl Jean Williams, credit score 810. Assets, $420,000 in verified accounts. She's listed as the primary guarantor. Without her backing, Mr. Williams doesn't qualify for this tier of luxury vehicle. The silence that followed, James said, was deafening. Ashley stared at the screen, at my name, at my credit score, at the word primary guarantor. Then she turned to Terrell. "You told me you bought our house," she said, her voice dropping to something dangerous. "You told me your bonus paid for it. You told me your mother was just... that we were helping her." Terrell couldn't speak. He was shrinking in his chair, getting smaller and smaller. "He doesn't pay for the house, ma'am," James added. And I have to say, when he told me this part, I detected a hint of satisfaction in his voice. "The mortgage payments come from the same joint account Pearl Jean just closed. I remember because she set up those automatic payments right here at this desk 5 years ago, April 2018. "You lied to me," Ashley hissed. "You made me look like an idiot. I told everyone. I posted it on Facebook. Everyone thinks we're rich." "Ashley, please," Terrell begged. "We can figure this out. We can get a lease on a Honda. We can—" "Don't touch me!" Ashley screamed. She grabbed her purse and stormed out of the dealership, past the other customers who were now openly watching the show. Terrell sat there for another minute, alone at that desk. "I'm sorry, Mr. Williams," James said, taking the keys to the Escalade and locking them in his drawer. "I can't sell you this car. You might want to go after your wife." Terrell stood up and walked out, his shoulders slumped, his expensive suit suddenly looking cheap and ill-fitting. They'd arrived in a cloud of perfume and arrogance. They left in their dented 2019 Honda Civic, screaming at each other before they even got out of the parking lot. James said he watched them go and thought, "That Pearl Jean Williams is one smart lady." While my son was having the worst morning of his life, I was at Home Depot. I stood in the lock and key aisle, looking at deadbolts and door handles. A young employee, his name tag said Miguel, approached me. "Can I help you find something, ma'am?" "I need to change all the locks on my house," I said. "Front door, back door, and garage side entrance. How quickly can you do it?" "We have a locksmith service," Miguel said, "but the earliest would be tomorrow." "I need it done today," I said, "by noon. It's an emergency." Something in my voice made him pause. He looked at me, really looked, and I think he saw something there. Maybe he'd seen that look on his own grandmother's face, that look that says, "I've had enough." "Let me call my manager," he said. 20 minutes later, I had an appointment with their emergency locksmith service, 1 p.m. at 1247 Maple Street. "That's not your address in our system," the manager said, looking at her computer. "It's a rental property," I said smoothly. "I own it. The tenants have become problematic." She nodded, understanding immediately. "We'll be there at 1 o'clock, Mrs. Williams." From Home Depot, I went to Office Depot. I needed to print something official looking and absolutely clear. I typed it up on their public computer, standing there in the copy center. To Terrell Marcus Williams and Ashley Nicole Williams. From Pearl Jean Williams, property owner, R.E., property located at 1247 Maple Street, Denver, Colorado, 80220. Date, March 15, 2023. You are hereby notified that you must vacate the above-referenced property within 30 days of receipt of this notice. Your occupancy was permitted on the condition of financial arrangements that you have now violated through misrepresentation and disrespect. As the sole owner of this property, deed recorded June 12, 2013, Denver County Records, Book 4582, page 127. I am exercising my legal right to reclaim my residence. You may contact my attorney, Lawrence Mitchell, Esquire, at Mitchell & Associates, 303-555-7842, to arrange supervised removal of your personal belongings. Do not attempt to enter the premises after 1 p.m. today, March 15, 2023. The locks have been changed. The security system has been updated. Denver Police Department has been notified. Signed, Pearl Jean Williams, property owner. I printed it on heavy cream-colored cardstock. Official, legal, final. Then I drove to my house. Excuse me, Terrell's house. No, my house. The house I bought with $150,000 of my retirement savings. The locksmith was already there when I arrived at 12:58 p.m. A professional crew of 2 men who worked quickly and efficiently. By 1:45 p.m., all 3 locks had been changed. New deadbolts, new keys, new security codes on the alarm system. I taped the notice to the front door with blue painter's tape. I didn't want to damage my woodwork. Then I stood back and looked at the house. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2,800 square feet. Beautiful maple trees in the front yard. A swing set in the back that I'd bought for Kennedy's 6th birthday. I'd sacrificed so much for this house. Worked extra hours. Skipped vacations. Worn old clothes. Also, my son could have the American dream. But the American dream isn't supposed to come from your mama's retirement fund. I got in my car and drove to the Four Seasons Hotel downtown. If I was going to watch my son's world collapse, I was going to do it from a comfortable bed with room service and a view of the mountains. I checked into the Four Seasons at 2:30 p.m., a corner suite on the 18th floor with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Front Range. The room cost $485 per night, and I didn't even blink when I handed over my credit card. After the bellhop left, I sat on the edge of the king-sized bed and opened my phone. I'd turned off Do Not Disturb. 63 missed calls, 47 text messages, 12 voicemails, all from Terrell. I opened the security camera app on my phone instead, the app that connected to the Ring doorbell camera at 1247 Maple Street. My house, my camera, my property. I made myself a cup of tea from the in-room Nespresso machine and settled into the armchair by the window. Then I pressed play. The timestamp said 3:17 p.m. The Honda Civic pulled into the driveway too fast. Terrell slammed on the brakes, jerking to a stop. Through the windshield, I could see Ashley's hands flying around. She was screaming. Terrell gripped the steering wheel, his head bowed. Kennedy was in the back seat, her face pressed against the window, looking bored and annoyed. Finally, the car doors opened. Ashley got out first and slammed her door so hard I winced even though I was 5 miles away. She marched toward the front porch, her heels clicking aggressively on the walkway. Terrell followed, looking like a man walking to his execution. "Just open the door, Terrell," Ashley's voice came through the camera's tiny microphone. "I need to change out of these clothes. I feel like an idiot." I'm coming, Terrell muttered. He fumbled in his pocket for his keys. Found them, walked up the front steps. I took a sip of my tea. This was the part I'd been waiting for. Terrell jammed his key into the lock. It went in halfway and stopped. He jiggled it. Nothing. He pulled it out, examined it, shoved it back in, tried to turn it. It wouldn't budge. "What is wrong with you?" Ashley snapped. "Open the door." "It's stuck," Terrell said, his voice rising with panic. "The key won't turn." "Give it to me." Ashley snatched the keys from his hand. She shoved the key in and twisted with all her strength. Snap! Half the key broke off inside the lock. "Great!" Ashley screamed. "Just great, Terrell. You haven't maintained this house in years. The lock is broken." "It's not broken," Terrell said slowly. He was leaning in close now, looking at the door frame. It's new. This is a new lock." He reached out and touched the brass plate. Shiny, fresh. Installed today. Then he looked down and saw the envelope. The white envelope with the blue painter's tape. The one with "To the current occupants," written in my neat cursive. "What is that?" Ashley demanded. Terrell pulled the envelope off the door. His hands were shaking. He ripped it open and pulled out the cream-colored cardstock. I watched him read it. Watched his shoulders drop 3 inches. Watched the color drain from his face. "Read it," Ashley commanded. "What does she say? Is she apologizing?" Terrell looked at his wife, then back at the letter. "No," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "She's not apologizing." He started reading aloud. "Dear Terrell and Ashley, since you made it clear last night that I am a charity case who should be grateful for scraps, I realized it was unfair of me to burden you with living in a house owned by such a person." His voice cracked. "Therefore, I have taken possession of my property, effective immediately. The locks have been changed. You have 30 days to remove your belongings through my attorney." He stopped reading. The paper fluttered in his hand. Silence. Absolute silence on that front porch. Then Ashley exploded. She let out a shriek that distorted the audio on my phone. She threw her purse at the door. "She can't do this!" Ashley screamed. "We live here. This is our house. My clothes are in there. My jewelry. Technically," Terrell whispered, staring at the letter. "It's her house. Her name is on the deed. We just We just pay the utilities." "You told me it was ours," Ashley yelled, turning on him. She started hitting his chest with her fists. "You told me she put it in your name years ago. You lied." "I thought she would," Terrell said weakly, backing away. "She said she'd leave it to me in her will. I didn't think she'd actually kick us out while she was still alive." Ashley walked up to the door and started pounding on it with her palms. "Pearl Jean!" she screamed. "Open this door! I know you're in there! This is illegal! You can't lock us out!" I took another sip of my tea. "Oh, honey," I thought. "I'm not in there. I'm 5 miles away watching you on my phone." Kennedy got out of the car. She walked up to her parents, looking scared. "Mom? Dad? Why can't we go inside? I need my iPad. It's on the charger." "Shut up, Kennedy," Ashley snapped. Then she immediately covered her mouth, realizing what she'd done. Kennedy's face crumbled. She started crying. Terrell looked at his daughter, then at the house. Then he walked to the bay window and cupped his hands around his eyes, peering inside. He could see the living room. Clean, empty. The photos still on the mantel. His graduation, his wedding, Kennedy as a baby. A life he'd taken for granted. He turned back to Ashley. "She's not home," he said. "The alarm light is red. If we break a window, the police will come." "So what do we do?" Ashley hissed. "We can't stand in the driveway like homeless people. The neighbors are watching." She was right. I switched to the driveway camera view. Mrs. Carol Henderson across the street was on her porch, watering her petunias. She'd been watering that same pot for 7 minutes straight. She was watching everything. "We have to go," Terrell said. "We have to go to a hotel." "With what money?" Ashley asked. "You said the accounts were empty. You said the cards were declined." Terrell rubbed his face with both hands. "I have a credit card. One she doesn't know about. It has a limit of $2,000. Should get us a room for a few nights." "A few nights?" Ashley stared at him. "She'll cave by tomorrow. She always caves. She's just throwing a tantrum because of what Kennedy said." "I don't know, Ashley," Terrell said, looking at the broken key stuck in the lock. "She changed the locks. That's not a tantrum. That's permanent." They stood there for another minute, defeated, lost. The wind blew the notice on the door, making it flutter. Finally, they trudged back to the Honda. Ashley got in the passenger seat and slammed the door. Terrell got in the driver's side and sat there for a long time before starting the engine. I watched them back out of the driveway. They didn't look like the power couple they pretended to be last night at Elway's. They looked like refugees. I closed the app on my phone. My hands were trembling slightly. Not from fear, from adrenaline. It's a terrifying thing to burn a bridge while you're standing on it. But I wasn't on the bridge anymore. I'd already crossed it. I was safe on the other side. They were the ones stuck in the canyon. I picked up the room service menu and ordered dinner. Grilled salmon with asparagus, a glass of Pinot Grigio, a slice of chocolate cake for dessert. Nobody was going to call me a charity case while I ate. I spent 3 days at the Four Seasons. On the 4th day, I went home to my house on Welton Street, the house Samuel and I bought in 1992, the one with my name alone on the deed. I made my coffee, fed my cardinal, and waited. 5 days later, my phone rang. Tuesday afternoon, while I was pruning Samuel's roses. "Kennedy, iPad," I answered. "Hello? Grandma?" Kennedy's voice was small, wobbly. "I'm so hungry." Every grandmother instinct screamed at me to fix it. Then I heard it, faint in the background. Terrell's voice. "Good. Now tell her we don't have money for dinner." "Kennedy, sweetheart," I said gently. "When was the last time you ate?" "We had McDonald's for lunch, but Daddy said—" Scrambling, the phone being grabbed. "Mom, wait. We're at the Budget Lodge off E25. We can't afford—" "Stop," I said coldly. "You just fed her McDonald's. You used a 9-year-old to manipulate me. I just thought, if Kennedy calls me crying about hunger again, I won't send money. I'll send Child Protective Services. If you cannot feed your child, that's neglect, and I will report it." I hung up. My hands shook with fury. I'd known Terrell was irresponsible, but using Kennedy as a weapon? That was new. That night, I called Gerald Thompson, a private investigator from my paralegal days. "I need the truth about my son's finances, everything. 1 week." 7 days later, Gerald handed me a manila folder in a coffee shop. He looked troubled. "Mrs. Williams, What I found? It's not pretty. I opened it. Subject: Terrell Marcus Williams. Employment: actual title: Senior Sales Associate, not VP. Salary: $78,000 per year. Take home $58,000. Lying about title for 6 years. Credit card debt. Total: $80,000 across 5 cards, all maxed. Minimum payments: $2,100 per month. All auto-drafted from Pearl Jean's account until March 15th. Ashley Williams. Never held full-time employment. Boutique never opened. $40,000 spent on designer clothes, spa treatments, unexplained cash, current situation. Budget lodge, $623 per week. Emergency credit card maxes out in 3 days. Analysis: family spending, $9,200 per month. Terrell's income, $4,833 per month. Shortfall covered by Pearl Jean, $4,367 per month. 10-year deficit, $524,000. I closed the folder. Thank you, Gerald. Are you okay? I thought about that. My son had stolen $500,000, but I was sitting here with money in my account and nobody's hand in my pocket. Yes, I said. For the first time in years, I'm okay. 2 weeks after this lockout, I received a letter from my attorney, Lawrence Mitchell. Mediation required by Colorado law. April 2nd, 2023, 10 a.m. on April 2nd, I arrived at 9:45 a.m. wearing my best suit and pearls. I carried the red folder, Gerald's investigation, and a letter I'd written the night before. At 10:12 a.m., Terrell and Ashley walked in. Terrell looked 10 years older. Wrinkled suit, hollow eyes, weight lost. Ashley wore jeans and a plain sweater, roots showing dark against blonde. No jewelry except her wedding ring. Judge Barbara Thornton, a retired black woman about 75, sat at the head of the table. Mr. Williams, why did you request this meeting? Terrell's voice was raspy. I want to apologize and ask my mother to reconsider. We have nowhere to go. Kennedy's in school. We just need time. How much time? Judge Thornton asked. 6 months, Ashley said quickly. Maybe a year. Mrs. Williams, your response? I opened the red folder slowly. May I present context? I pulled out bank statements one by one. September 2013, $150,000, down payment on the house. December 2015, $40,000, Ashley's business. March 2017, $65,000, kitchen remodel. March 2023, $30,000, luxury vehicle. Documents slid across the table, one after another. Over 10 years, I gave my son $623,287. Judge Thornton's eyebrows rose. More than $500,000. I pulled out Gerald's report. This investigation shows my son has been lying about his income, title, and assets for his entire marriage. I looked at Ashley. Did you know Terrell is not a vice president? He's a senior sales associate. His salary is $78,000, not 6 figures. Did you know the mortgage came from my account? That Kennedy's tuition, your car, your vacations, all my retirement savings? Ashley stared at Terrell. What? I wanted you to think I was successful, Terrell burst out. I wanted to be the man you thought I was. By stealing from your mother? I wasn't stealing. I was going to pay her back. 10 years, I said. How much more time do you need? Silence. Judge Thornton cleared her throat. Mrs. Williams, what do you want? I pulled out my letter. I want my son to stand on his own feet. This is a personal loan agreement. $50,000, 5% interest, $500 per month for 10 years. Miss 3 payments, it goes to collections. Terrell's hands shook as he picked it up. You'd still help me? This isn't help. It's a loan. With consequences. You'll pay back every penny. The house? Sold. $740,000. Closing in 30 days. You have until May 2nd to find somewhere else. Where do we go? Ashley demanded. That's not my problem. You're adults. Figure it out. Judge Thornton looked at Terrell. Do you accept? Terrell stared at the agreement. At the $50,000 that gave him a chance. At the $500 payment that would force him to grow up. Mom, his voice broke. I'm sorry. I wanted to be like Dad. He was so strong and I'm just not. There it was. My son wasn't greedy. He was insecure. A boy who'd lost his father trying to fill shoes too big for him. Terrell, I said gently, your father was strong because he had integrity. He paid his debts. He kept his word. That's what I want for you. I walked around the table and put my hand on his shoulder. Sign the paper. Take the loan. Start over. Build a life that's real. Terrell signed with shaking hands. Terrell Marcus Williams. Ashley stood up, grabbed her purse. I can't do this. I can't live in cheap apartments. I married you because I thought you were somebody. But you're nobody. She walked out. Terrell started to follow, but I stopped him. Let her go, baby. But Kennedy's better off without a mother who only loves money. Terrell sank into his chair and sobbed. I sat beside him and put my arm around his shoulders. For the first time in 42 years, I wasn't trying to fix his problems. I was just sitting with him, in his pain. 6 months later, October 15th, 2023, my phone rang. Hi, Mom. Can Kennedy and I come over? I want to show you something. They arrived in a 2016 Toyota Camry. Kennedy wore jeans and a Broncos t-shirt from Target. No designer clothes. No iPad. Hi, Grandma. She hugged me tight. Inside, Terrell showed me his phone. Checking $3,247.82. Savings, $1,850. 6 on-time payments. $12,000 in credit card debt paid down. Working overtime. Kennedy's in public school doing great. We have a 2-bedroom in Aurora. It's small, but it's ours. I'm so proud of you. I learned having less money doesn't mean less life. Kennedy and I cook together. We go to parks. We talk. I was so busy looking successful I forgot to be present. Kennedy pulled out the journal, the one I'd given her. I've been writing every day. She opened to the first page. March 14th, 2023. Today, I said something mean to Grandma. Mama told me to, but I don't think Grandma is poor. I think Mama lied. March 15th, 2023. We can't get in our house. Daddy said Grandma owns it. She's been paying for everything. So Grandma wasn't poor. We were. April 15th, 2023. Mama left. She said she loves money more than us, but Daddy painted my room purple. He remembered my favorite color. I think I like this Daddy better. October 12th, 2023. Grandma said words have consequences. She was right. My words hurt her and changed everything. But maybe that's okay. Daddy's happier now. He doesn't lie. I learned being rich isn't about money. It's about people who love you even when you mess up. That's real rich. I pulled Kennedy into my arms, tears streaming. You are the wisest 9-year-old I've ever met. 3 weeks later, Kennedy's school concert. A modest building in Aurora with linoleum floors and folding chairs. The stage was in the gymnasium. When Kennedy walked out in a blue choir t-shirt, she looked more confident than ever. They sang Lean on Me. Kennedy's solo, clear and strong, filled that gymnasium. Terrell cried proud tears. After, Kennedy ran to us. Did I do good, Grandma? You were magnificent. She looked up seriously. Am I better now? Better than before? I knelt to her level. Kennedy, you were always good. You just needed to see it. Sometimes we need to lose everything to find what really matters. Is that why you did it? I didn't make you lose everything. I stopped letting your daddy build a house of lies. When it fell down, you had to build a real one. Made of truth? Exactly. I like the truth house better. 1 year later, March 14th, 2024, Kennedy's 10th birthday. Terrell. Birthday dinner at our apartment, 6 p.m., just spaghetti. But I'd love for you to be there. I arrived at their Aurora apartment at 5:55 p.m. 2 bedrooms, 900 square feet. IKEA furniture, mismatched dishes, but photos on walls. Kennedy's art on the fridge. Plants in windows. The smell of home-cooked sauce. A home. We sat at their small table, just us 3. Before we eat, Terrell said, opening his banking app, I made my 12th payment. $6,200 paid back. $43,800 to go. 7 more years at this rate. He looked at Kennedy, then me. This year was the hardest of my life. Losing Ashley, the house, working overtime, going without. But it's also been the best. Kennedy and I are actually close. I know her teachers. We help with homework. We play cards. We're not rich, but we're happy." He took my hand. "You didn't take everything, Mom. You gave me everything. The chance to be the father Kennedy deserves, the man Dad would be proud of." I squeezed his hand. He would be so proud. Kennedy raised her plastic cup. "To Grandma, for teaching us love isn't about money. It's about truth." We clinked mismatched cups. In that tiny apartment, eating spaghetti off secondhand plates, I felt richer than I ever had at Elway's. Saturday morning, March 2025. 2 years since that birthday dinner. My Cardinals at the feeder. "Still grateful?" I ask. He cracks a seed and flies. Terrell, payment number 24, halfway there. Kennedy, got an A on my book report. Teacher says I write good. Maybe because I practice in my journal every day. I look at the framed photo from Kennedy's 10th birthday. 3 of us in that tiny kitchen, newspaper party hats, laughing. Not fancy, but real. Next to it, Samuel in his construction uniform. Gone 20 years, but here in every decision I make. "Our boy made it, Samuel." I learned that at 68 you can still set boundaries, still say no, still choose yourself. I learned the most loving thing is often the hardest thing. I learned that money can buy houses and cars, but it can't buy character or growth or real family. Those only come from struggle, truth, and hard work. The sun paints everything gold. My roses bloom. The cardinal returns with his mate. 2 birds sharing breakfast. I finish my coffee and go to my garden. The roses need tending. Life needs living. I, Pearl Jean Williams, 68 years old, 40 years of work, 20 of widowhood, 10 of enabling, 2 of teaching my son to fly, am finally completely free. I am not an ATM. I am not a charity case. I am a woman who knows her worth. I am Samuel's widow, and I hear his voice. Stand tall, Pearl, even when they want you to kneel. I'm standing, Samuel. The greatest gift I gave my son wasn't $600,000. It was empty hands, because empty hands forced him to fill his own. I pull out my journal and write. March 14th, 2025. 2 years ago, my granddaughter called me a charity case. Today, she got an A on her book report. 2 years ago, my son lived a lie. Today, he lives his truth. 2 years ago, I drowned in endless giving. Today, I am free. The charity case became the teacher. Sometimes the most expensive thing you give someone is nothing at all. I close the journal and look outside. The cardinal and his mate share seeds at the feeder, taking what they need, leaving the rest. That's the secret to everything, I say. And in my kitchen, in the home I built with Samuel, in the life I reclaimed, I finally understand what it means to be rich. It has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with peace.